Good afternoon. Welcome to KelownaNow Live. I'm Jim Check, and I'm sitting down today with JP Letnick of Sage Executive Associates. Did I get that right?
Sage Executive Group.
There you go. I knew I was going to get something wrong there. Maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and what, like your role there. You're a realtor, I take it, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm a real estate agent in Kelowna. I've been for about almost 10 years. We have our own agency, Letnick Estates, within Sage, and we have about 15 agents or so that work with us.
And you're here today to talk about Airbnbs, short-term rentals.
Short-term rental policy from the provincial government. Yes.
And what is, maybe just give us a little brief on what your thoughts are on that.
For sure. So before I get into that, I just want to say ahead of time that I do support the long-term rental development and inventory levels being increased. So I'm all on board for that. But I'm more in line with adding more supply. Right now, what we're seeing with the provincial government is that they are putting blanket policies that are going to be restricting property use rights for owners that have followed through with the City of Kelowna's zoning bylaws and legally purchased properties that were intended to be for short-term rental. So that's kind of what I'm starting to see, and what we're also noticing are cities like Penticton and Vernon have publicly voiced and voted in favor of going to the government and provincial government and fighting for its people's rights and asking for additional exemptions to the short-term rental bylaw.
So we are a vacation town.
Yes.
And full disclosure, I have purchased a properly zoned, and when I purchased the property in the Caban development, it was zoned, and it was said, because I mean, those are typically going to be vacation homes.
Correct.
And I bought it on the premise that it would be a short-term rental in some parts of the month and probably student housing in the other parts of the month, because I mean, Kelowna is really a 4-month market. So followed all the zoning rights, bought the property based on that information, and then they changed the rules, or they're trying to change the rules, I guess. Yes. Right now they seem to be moving towards that. And to a lot of people that I've spoken to, quite a few people, they think it's unfair that, that we had a young lady on here that manages probably like 30 or 40 properties. She doesn't own the properties, but she manages, and she's built that business up over 5 years, and basically they're taking her business away.
Correct. And as you mentioned, Kelowna is very much a tourism central city. We rely heavily on tourism, as was shown during COVID when a lot of the travel was restricted. A lot of local businesses went under because we didn't have the volume of people coming to our town. So we're going to see that getting hit again when we are additionally restricting the places that people can stay. So there's definitely going to be effects not only in the short-term rental businesses, like you were mentioning with the lady who's run her business, but that's going to trickle down to cleaners, to supply.
Lots of jobs.
Lots of jobs are going to be affected.
For sure, and also investors too, because you know what? We're seeing a slowdown because we know right now some of the developments aren't selling out where they used to sell out in hours, right?
Correct.
So, but short-term rentals also fill a need for traveling nurses, other professionals that are traveling, and of course people on vacation, and they do fill some needs for student housing as well. So
yes,
it's odd that they went after such a small segment of the market to say that that was the problem with the rental supply, when we clearly know that that's not the problem with the rental supply. When you add 1.2 million plus to a population in a year on already strained housing, that's more the problem than it is like, the few rentals in Kelowna. I'm all for it too, like improperly zoned or people that are outside the rules should be dealt with accordingly.
Correct. Right? I fully agree with that. And that's the difference that we're seeing right now, is that rather than just targeting those improper licensed Airbnbs, short-term rentals, they're going after everybody, including someone who, like yourself, has legally purchased properly zoned property. And that's where you've put your equity. And now that's being under attack by the government.
It truly seems odd to go after, a group and then even to use the media as like the scapegoat and get people all riled up on it, right? Because saying that that's why rents are so high. We have seen in Kelowna a number of rental properties, fully rental, like strictly rental properties get approved in this past little while, incentivizing us to build more rental properties. That's a great thing, right? Like, I mean, getting more and more rental properties, but also on the other side of that, getting people into homes that they own too, instead of just focusing on rentals, right? Like we should allow people to purchase homes, like we should free up more land, all kinds of things, right? Build more houses, but they seem to be focused on this one thing, and we will see, I wouldn't even say probably, we will see within, a year, it's not gonna really make a difference. right?
Correct. And on that point of rental-only housing, the federal government brought in a great program, which is to incentivize developers to build more rental-only specific housing by removing the GST obligations.
Right, we have seen that, yeah.
We've seen that. If you look around town, there's quite a few projects of rental-only developments that are going up.
So you're a realtor. Have you seen a real estate agent? I don't know what's the proper term anymore these days. Is it either or? Either or. There you go. One of them is trademarked, right?
Correct.
Have you had some of your clients complain about like they purchase properties and now they may not be able to follow through with them or even afford to do them on a long-term rental?
And that's exactly what we're seeing. And most of our clients that have purchased in either Aqua Cabana, Brooklyn, any of the short-term rental allowed zoning specific buildings, a lot of those purchasers are not out-of-town buyers that have lots and lots of money in their pocket and they're just investing in second residences. These are families that have worked hard all their life. They're buying a secondary property specifically so that they have the flexibility of being able to do short-term rental if they want to, or if they plan to move into that property in the future. But it gives them the options, and now that's taking it away from them.
Well, I know my son is in that boat too. He bought in Brooklyn, and he can't afford to live in it on his own. So he lives in it in the wintertime, and his plan is to Airbnb it out for 3 months of the year so that he can afford to pay for it. So hopefully he gets enough equity in that he can then start to pay for it. But he can't afford to carry the mortgage and the rest of it for the full year. So that's how he's gone about to affording his own place to live in Brooklyn.
Correct. And that's also one of the things is there's a discrepancy of people knowing between bed and breakfast and short-term rental license with the city. And there were two different licenses with different rules. Short-term rental allowed someone like him to be able to do a short-term rental license for those few months while he lived in there. It's a little bit more difficult with the rules for bed and breakfast because you have parking requirements that are more strict.
Mm. Yeah, what's that bed and breakfast? I don't hear much about it anymore, right? Airbnb seems to have kind of...
So Airbnb is it's a marketing platform. So you can do bed and breakfast or short-term rental license, and you can promote both on Airbnb.
Okay. So what are some of your clients saying then? Are they trying to get out of the deal? Are they just upset, or are they're hoping somebody campaigns for them?
They're hoping people are going to campaign for them, especially when I was showing properties down in the downtown lagoons, Dolphins, that area. We even had people in the hallways that were talking to us and mentioning like they're hoping. They're holding on to the thread of hope that something's going to happen where their properties are going to be exempt, because otherwise they're in deep trouble. They know that their equity is going to go down.
I know I've heard from Penticton that they're really pushing because Penticton's even a bigger tourist town than here, right, where the population balloons in the summer, and they rely on the Airbnbs. And that's the same thing for here in Big White, and you know what I mean, lots of places like that. So doing something that seems unfair, especially when people follow the rules, I can see if they didn't follow the rules, but if they followed the rules, I would expect lawsuits maybe, because I would think that it seems odd, like even from Airbnb, I think they would defend their I guess you call them clients or whatever.
Yep. And what we've heard down the pipeline is that there are a lot of people that are speaking with each other to try and get a group together to do basically a class action lawsuits against the government. I would suspect to see that in probably the next couple of months, unless there's large amendments that are being made to the policy. I
mean, you're close to politics. I don't want to bring your dad into this, but it seems like it's one party that's decided this. I don't think it's got buy-in from all the parties. It doesn't have buy-in from the opposition. I've heard from the opposition. They say they don't buy into this.
That's correct. And unfortunately, with the situation that we have right now is that the NDP do hold majority of the seats in Parliament. So as for the opposition, even if all of them didn't agree with the policy, their hands are tied. There's nothing that they can really do.
Absolutely, yeah. So what is the path forward, do you think? Just make more noise? Is that...
And that's why I'm here. I think that the more information that gets out there, the more knowledge that is shared regarding property rights being taken away and more noise that's being made, people feeling like they can voice their opinions and not be pressured to hold it down will help the process.
So, I look in Kelowna and a couple things puzzle me for sure. A few years ago, we did the spec tax, right? Because we said, there's home, we're trying to push more homes into the rental areas. Instead of like focusing on supply issues, we focus on like punishing those that have already invested and stuff like that, right?
Correct.
So like there is land in here that can be utilized. There is ways to incentivize builders, yet they don't seem to go to the incentive program at all, right? It seems more the stick. We see that from the federal government too, although the GST one is a decent one, but a little too little, much too late, right? Do you know what I mean? Like 8 years in, they've had the wheel, and then they decide that they're going to do this GSE after it's basically a full-blown crisis, right?
Correct. Yeah, and it is nice to see that the incentives are starting to come out, but there's definitely a supply issue, and that's at the core of it. That's going to be the problem going forward in most, as we've seen worldwide, is mostly it's a supply issue.
And here's the other thing that I've put this forward a few times is outlying communities outside of the Okanagan, even some of the places in the Okanagan, have plenty of lots available and stuff like that, and homes. Why not incentivize people to move out of the bigger centers into the small towns? Like you probably traveled around, you see some of the smaller centers like are almost dying, right? You know, you go to the Salmos and the Greenwoods and the Midways and Rock Creek, Beaverdale.
Yep.
Lots of these outlying communities that are very close to a center. Why not incentivize people that are maybe older that kind of don't need to be in the hub of all the activity to move to those areas that need the tax base anyway?
For sure. And even if you don't take a look at that and you just look at the availability of rental and housing that's available here, as of today, there's over 450 homes that are vacant on the market for sale in Kelowna. Those are available. That's not even including the owner-occupied, easily accessible ones that could be transferred over. There's over 250 condos and apartments on the rental and just one website today, over 150 homes available for rent just in Kelowna today. So there is inventory. And we were talking to property managers, and the vacancy rates that are promoted are based on the statistics from a few years ago. And they don't really take into consideration the fact that in the last
What's happening now?
Exactly. The rates went up. People couldn't sell their homes. They put them onto the rental market. So our vacancy rates are actually much higher than what they currently are saying.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to incentivize home building, drop the interest rates.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's just ridiculous. I listened to an interview a couple of days on Bloomberg, and this is so telling. And I'm not sure if it was Blackstone or BlackRock. They're all the same. Vanguard. They're just like, oh, this is an incredible opportunity right now. We're going to be looking at the residential home market because people are going to start losing their homes, and we're going to see if we can pick up some of these homes.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate.
Yeah. So they're the ones, again, central banks control the rate. Central banks are owned by the banks. They're not a government organization. And they're the ones that are jacking up the rates and then forcing people out of their homes.
Yeah. And I'm also part of the developers circle. So we see a lot of builders right now that have pulled back on single family house builds. The rates are so high, they can't afford the construction loans. Yeah. So you're reducing inventory even further on that.
That's what I mean. So they choke off the supply. Yep. They add demand by bringing in it's 1.2 million plus a lot of students. I think today they announced they're going to throttle it back by 35% on the student permits, but not on the existing ones, on new permits. But right. I mean, it's just basic math, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, most of us can do basic math, no?
Exactly. If you bring that many people, you need to have the supply to support it. Otherwise,
and that goes for our healthcare and a whole bunch of other things, yeah. Right? So we have we've had a huge boom. I can remember a few properties. I think phase 1 of Aqua sold out
48 hours.
48 hours. Yep. Caban sold out, I think, in a day.
Correct.
Brooklyn, I think, sold. I don't know if it sold in
they
maybe
sold
a couple
fairly
days
quick, but it took us a little bit. But even Aqua right now, phase 2, and where
still sitting there.
They still have units available.
Yeah, and Movala too, right? Yep. And their other units. Yeah, it's tougher because people aren't buying, right? People aren't even buying homes. I know our neighbor's house for sale. I think it was for sale for close to a year, and they dropped the price substantially to get it going, right? But it is the interest rates that have caused a lot of the pain, right? So why don't the government step in there? They seem to want to step everywhere else.
They want to step everywhere else.
Do you have a solution other than just making noise?
Well, I mean, that's the part of the problem right now is just making noise is kind of the only thing that I can really see that's going to help the situation. Because if people stay quiet, then nothing's going to get changed.
Well, you're closer to what options are available because this is government action. Yeah. So you're closer to that because you understand it because you grew up around it.
Correct. Yeah. All my life political.
So how do you see it though? Like, is it a come the election in October? Is that one of the ways to do something or?
Yes. Yeah. If people have finally kind of realized that, spec tax, attack on property rights, and kind of seeing the true colors of what the current government is.
We've seen a lot of taxes introduced.
We've seen a lot of taxes.
We've seen a lot of taxes introduced.
Then next year when the election happens, I hope that people get out to vote.
I think the opposition needs to figure out I don't want to get political, but they need to have a coming together of the two.
Yes.
Of the two. They need to figure that out themselves, right? But Kelowna is a beautiful place. We're lucky to live here for sure.
Absolutely.
But I think we need a blend of everything, just like any society or any kind of community needs a blend of things. And I think regulating the Airbnb market, definitely, and having designated Airbnbs makes sense.
Correct.
So that, because they do fill a need. Like, I mean, it seems like it helps young people get into homes, like my son, the way he did it.
Yep.
It also helps in the, in the school runs basically September through to April. And then those May through August is great Airbnb times, and the rest of the time you could rent it out to students.
Absolutely. And one of the exemptions from the province is that hotels, motels, and hotels type strata buildings are exempt. And basically what we're seeing right now is properties like Aqua, Caban, they are more like a resort and a hotel than anything else.
They are. They're vacation homes.
They're vacation
for sure.
homes. That's what they're primarily built. But it allows a private individual to get into that business without having to have such deep pockets to buy a hotel. Right. So it gives the opportunity to everybody.
Has the hotel industry been kind of like pushing for this? Because obviously they're Airbnb's competition to them.
Exactly. And the hotels have been lobbying government for quite a long time, for many years, where Airbnb came into play. Hotels have been fighting against it, wanting to have more taxes involved in Airbnbs. And that has happened. We've had proper licensing with municipalities. We have hotel taxes being implemented. People that are going into Airbnb are paying their proper share of fees.
Right, and they're running a business.
They're running a business.
They're running a business, and that's the lifeblood of Canada. They're running a business, small business.
Correct.
We did see it with the HST, where the car dealerships kind of campaigned. I don't know when. Remember HST?
I remember when HST was implemented in BC.
And then it was actually a decent deal. 10%. And then I think they took it to a referendum, and then it ended up being 12%.
Exactly.
And then the big change was cars now pay PST and GST on a used car.
Yep.
So that was a big win for the car dealerships, because they could use that as leverage when they were doing. Because before you never used to pay PST on a used vehicle.
That's right.
Now the tax on a used vehicle can, if you sell that car a few times, it'd be more than the car's worth.
Probably. Yep.
Anyway, ludicrous. That's what it is, right?
Yeah. So many taxes.
Anything else you want to add?
Just one other thing that I did want to mention, because this took a little bit of digging to get information out, is that the provincial policy does allow for short-term rental to be done in someone's principal residence if they have a legal suite or carriage house. But what I did dig up is that the city of Kelowna is going to continue to have restricted that in their bylaws regarding no short-term rentals or bed and breakfast within a legal suite or carriage house. The city's allowed to make it more strict. They are going to continue to make it more strict. So for anybody that was looking to potentially move their money from a condo to a house with a suite, that's not.
Yeah, they're saying they don't want them in residential areas, basically.
Correct.
So the only out for my son, I think he's fine as long as he lives in his place as his primary residence.
Then he may be able to apply for a bed and breakfast license.
No, I think he can keep it as an Airbnb.
To a certain extent. So the city has a non-conforming policy, but that may be completely kiboshed by the province in May.
Who knows, right?
There's still changes being made.
I think people need, if now is the time to raise your voice if you have a concern, for sure. Yeah. So you can get a hold of JP Letnick. I'm sure you've got to find you. How do some people get a hold of you?
I'm very easily accessible. If you just search JP Letnick online on Google, you will find all my social media or websites.
Got an email address they can send?
Sure. It's topalphamentor@gmail.com.
Well, there you go. And then you're, again, with Sage Executive Group.
Letnick Estates.
There you go. Awesome.
All right.
Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching Kelowna Now. We're back at 4.